I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
That's Booby.
And Vita and Chip and Culpy. Oh, Sailor put Chirpy here.
Chirpy?
Chirpy.
That's Chip, not Chirpy.
It's Chirpy.
Oh, the bird. Ain't too many characters, bruh.
Whatever.
Too many characters,
He's
bruh.
poking up his little face, so I had to put it in there.
Hey, so we did Christmas in February yesterday in the fireside. That was a conspiracy fireside where YouTube, or maybe it was BM Fan, was attempting to quell our free speech. We were talking about abortion, and the entire night the video was crazy.
I gotta say, I was a little bit suspicious.
And then as soon as I changed the title, it kind of cleared up for a second. So anyway,
but we missed one.
We missed one. And
1984.
This is, shit, 1984.
What? Do you know anything about that?
What do you mean? It's the famous story of government oppression. You know, Big Brother's watching you. You ever heard that?
Oh, really?
That's 1984. The movie.
Okay. Well, it doesn't say
Who
who it
sent
was
it
from.
to us?
I don't know.
Well, whoever sent it to us, thank you very much. We appreciate you. Hey, if you wanted to see it, you gotta get into Christmas in February, and the way to do that is to have been part of the fireside yesterday, but you missed it because you were too busy doing other things that were more important than hanging out with your friends, Vin and Sori.
Oh my gosh, babe!
I'm just saying. Hey, the timer's not on that thing.
Oh, you know what? It's not even on. Don't focus either.
So, I mean, I don't really feel sorry for you, except for my man Peter. Because my man Peter would have wanted to do that. Thanks for the book. I'm sitting here reading about the big homie Siddhartha.
Yeah?
Yeah, it just started. You know, he basically has everything. Everybody loves him. But he doesn't really, he's not really content within himself.
Oh.
Type of thing. Well, Siddhartha became the Buddha, basically.
Oh.
So, anyway, it's going to be very, very interesting read. He's been telling me to read this book for 8 months now. So.
You were so quiet in there, I thought you were asleep.
Nope, I'm reading Siddhartha. All right.
I was like, are you asleep? You were
one of my favorite bands of all time is Magua.
Yep.
They're definitely my favorite black metal band.
So here we are.
And we're doing exercises in Futility. This is song 1, right?
Yeah.
So I just love these guys. I love them. All right, let's do it.
I just love these guys.
I do. They're one of the best bands right now.
I know you do.
And we start, please.
And
go!
Go.
cannot tell you how much I love this band.
Well, I can see that you do.
I love them so much.
Why?
Well, I love what I love the concept of the record, Exercises in Futility. I've only been able to listen to 2 songs because we only covered 2 songs. I love the way that I love what they do with the guitar.
Yeah, but it's the same thing over and over and over and over and over.
Well, this
right?
one was a lot different. There are a lot more transitions that you usually hear in McGraw, but I don't care because the stuff he says is so deep and meaningful. Like he
Yeah, I don't understand.
He's
most of it.
He's dealing with the concept of nihilism and futility.
Well, yeah, I got that. I mean, obviously, but
I think it's a very, very deep topic, and I love the degree to which he's honest about what the implications are of that view of the world. Because I feel like there's just too much pretending happening. It's like if you really believe this stuff and you believe there's no ultimate purpose, that's a huge. That has so many implications, and these people, they just like he's being honest about it. That's why I like reading, Voltaire and those guys, because they're really honest about the. And now, of course, I don't want people to live with the actual ramifications of that worldview, because it's a terrible way to live.
oh yeah.
But I just love how deep everything is with this guy. It's just. And I love his voice. I love his accent. I love everything about this band. I cannot tell you how much I love it. This record. This is only the 3rd song. I'm assuming it got released in 2018. Is the best record of last year, hands down. Easy.
Wow.
Easy. I want to see if it came out in 2018. Did it? No, it came out in 2015. Well, I don't care, because I discovered it in 2018. It's the best record of 2018. It's the most meaningful record of the last 3 years, I'll say that. That's for sure.
I mean, I understood some of the lyrics, but
the depth of the lyricism, it's really, really, really good stuff. Really, really good stuff. I love it.
Well, you want to dig into them?
What?
Because, like, musically, I liked what it sounded like, except it just repeated over and over and over. It didn't seem like there was a whole lot of variation.
There were about 2 or 3 main riffs that were going. But then when they got to that tremolo stuff, man, they're the best at creating melodies with that tremolo. Like, when I got into, like, really, really started playing guitar, like, that's all I did was that tremolo stuff, because I just love the way it sounds.
Oh, okay.
I just love it. It's my favorite way of making melody. Like, you take a harp or whatever, but like, there's nothing that can that. By the way, this is a gift that we got too. Thank you very much, whoever you were.
I thought he was gonna bend it, and I know how easily
I probably
snapped.
was. Okay, the great truth is there isn't one.
I know.
That's a brilliant.
And it only gets worse since that conclusion.
But I mean, could there ever be another line to start off a record entitled "Exercises in Futility"?
No, that's perfect.
I mean, and this is not a critique on atheism per se. It's not. But if you say that we say that there's a God, and so that means there's ultimate truth by necessity.
Right.
Right? Because we take the correspondence view of truth, which is that truth is whatever corresponds to reality. And so if you say that God is the ultimate eternal reality.
Yeah.
Right? Then you have a locus of ultimate truth. But if you say that ultimate reality is nothingness, that what preceded everything that we see, hear, smell, touch, taste, whatever, is nothingness, then ultimate reality is nothingness, in which case by default you would say that there is no truth.
Right.
But if you say there is no truth, that in itself is a true statement.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So if he says the great truth is there isn't one, like, that's so brilliant to me, because on the one side it's like, yeah, if you believe nothingness is the ultimate truth, then there is no truth. But the minute that you say that, you've already stated that there is a truth. And so nihilism is a self-stultifying idea. It's a self-stultifying ideology. It eats itself. And relativism or postmodernism, like extreme forms of postmodernism, which say, because there are different forms of postmodernism, which is to basically say, if there was a truth that was out there, we would not be able to apprehend it objectively.
Why?
Because you see everything through the lens of your generalized presuppositions, which then are birthed because of where you're born and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Right? So, a lot of people mischaracterize postmodernism as saying that there's no such thing as truth. There are some people that believe that, but there are a lot of postmodernists that say, no, even if there was a truth out there, we would not be able to apprehend it objectively. Mm-hmm. But if you say that there's no such thing as truth, that in itself is a truth statement. So the concept of truth is something that you literally cannot get away from. Like, you cannot formulate any sort of philosophy or view of the world or axiom that denies ultimate truth without utilizing the concept of truth to begin with.
Right. Yeah.
And so right from the beginning, I don't even realize if he realizes it, but the very first line in the record, Exercises in Futility, actually gives you a bunch of hope if you really sit down and think it through. Because if you say the great truth is that there isn't one, you're making a truth statement yourself.
Right.
And he makes a ton of truth statements here, which means that the futility that he's railing against, that he's upset about for the entire album, isn't really real. It isn't really true that things are not completely futile and that there is a truth out there.
Yeah.
And whatever. So it gives me a lot of hope. You know, that very first line, the fact that the very first line of the record eats itself, gives you some hope that, wait a second, maybe nihilism isn't true. Maybe radical postmodernism isn't true. Maybe there is a truth out there. Maybe there is something where I can actually, you know, my efforts won't be completely and totally futile. So it's just one of the best. This is one of the best concept records of all time, and this is probably the best introduction to a record I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, can you come up with another opening line that would be more thematic to a record?
Oh, no, I don't think so. I think that works really well.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. It, like, starts it right off it.
Right. The great truth is that there isn't one, and it only gets worse since that conclusion, which is obviously a truth statement. But there it is right there, the irony of being an extension to nothing. Because if you say the ultimate, that ultimately, before all this started, all there was nothingness. You know, I hear people say, well, I'm not afraid to die because I was nothing before I came into the world, and I'll be nothing after I come into the world, so I'm not afraid to die. What they're not realizing is that if that's the case, then there's no reason for us to be moral people. If I kill you, it's like, well, yeah, but you were nothing before. So who cares? Well, so the very thing that they're using to comfort themselves about death is the same thing that can be used as justification to do a bunch of evil shit to a whole bunch of other people.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
But there it is, the irony of being an extension to nothing, which is, again, another self-stultifying idea. Because if you believe that nothingness preceded everything, then how did anything come into being from nothingness?
Right.
The Christian answer is that there was never nothing.
Because God was always there.
Well, right, because, the traditional Christian sort of formulation is that God created the world ex nihilo. Ex nihilo, from nothing. Yeah. And nihilo is the Greek, the Latin form of nihil, which nothing, which is where we get nihilism. Yeah. So we say that God created the world ex nihilo, ex out of, from nothing, which of course isn't true either, because he was something. God didn't create anything from nothing; he was something. So he created it from within himself. Yeah. Well, that's important, because if you say from nothing, you still end up with the same problem that the other side had. God didn't create anything from nothing. He created it from himself. The Bible never says he created the world from nothing. So if there was, the point is, if there was ever nothing, then we would have nothing. Is the point. If there was ever nothingness, then we would never have existence in the first place. That's the point.
Because how can you get something from nothing?
Well, right. So What he's talking about is the irony of being an extension into nothing, because you came from nothing.
Yep.
And then you're an extension into nothing, which is ironic, right? I would say it's a contradiction, but irony and contradiction are basically next door neighbors. But what he's talking about is we are an extension in some sort of reality somewhere. We know that, but we came from nothing and we're going into nothing. The force of inertia is now a vital factor. So it's like you're
What's
just
inertia?
Inertia is the theory of movement, things of that nature.
Okay.
So it's like you're just like moving around, and that's all you're doing.
Okay.
Because there's no reason or meaning to anything that you're doing. You're just moving around. Like right now I'm talking, I'm just flapping my guns. There's nothing really significant happening. Because you came from nothing.
I don't know how people can have this mindset and it not drive them to insanity.
Well, I mean, some of them did get driven into insanity. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of people that
Well, that's right there. And there's despair underneath each and every action, each and every attempt to pierce the armor of numbness. Like, my God.
And the burning bridges becomes a habit to support, and the front line expands like there's no tomorrow. Yeah, like it's just brilliant. But he's being so honest about this view of the world, and that's what I love and appreciate. But I agree. I mean, it's a pretty despairing outlook on life, which is why nihilism has never really been able to take off on the pop level, because it's such a hard way to live.
Yeah.
So, it's on the one hand, it's like it sounds super depressing, but on the other hand, what he's saying, it makes me appreciate. I think sometimes as a Christian, like you just some of that stuff you just take for granted. You just take for granted that you believe God created the world and blah blah blah. And Christians just take this for granted, not realizing what a privilege it is to be able to believe that and really be convinced of it.
No, you're completely right, and I think that we don't realize it. We don't think about it all the time, and because of that, like, I don't know, when you hear stuff like this, you're like, wait, it's not like even my most despairing moments, I don't really believe that everything is nothing, and that everything came, you know what I mean, that everything's just going into nothingness, and that there's despair everywhere. Like, I don't believe that. I actually have hope,
Yeah.
And I don't know what it would be like to actually, like, live that sort of existence, because I've never not believed in God.
Right.
So.
Right.
I don't know.
There's
Wild.
despair under each and every action, each and every attempt to pierce the armor of numbness.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you can get to the point where you end up contracting this sort of numbness to everything because of
How can you not?
Right, because you're not grounded in anything.
No.
Burning bridges becomes a habit to support, and the front lines expands like there's no tomorrow. Like you're always at war with somebody, basically.
Yeah.
Burning bridges is usually spoken of as your personal. What happens when you have personal conflicts to the point where you make it so that you guys, it's an irreconcilable point, and then the front line is in reference to war on a more meta level.
Yeah.
So all we're left with is numbness and then human conflict.
Yeah.
I envy the maggots. Their stuff at least sticks together.
Literal maggots? Or I didn't understand that.
Yeah, I think he's talking about how maggots, like they stick together. I mean, they're nasty and they feast on cadavers, but at least they stick together. Because he had just been talking about burning bridges and front lines, which speaks about the human tendency to separate. Where he talks about maggots.
Interesting, yeah.
Maggots, at least they stick together when they're devouring the.
Ugh.
But it talks about the necessity of community and things like that in the human experience.
Yeah,
while at
but
the
you
same
would
time,
think that why would he even say that? Like, why is that significant to you? Why do you envy the maggots? If it's all nothingness, then...
Well, just because a person has a cognitive understanding of the implications of their worldview doesn't mean that they like it. Mm-hmm. Because what we would say is he's still created in the image of God, so he wants that.
But according to his worldview, why doesn't that make him say, wait, maybe I'm wrong? Or maybe it does.
Well, I think the whole record is an outworking of that stuff. I think the record is him saying, I'm going to put down everything I possibly can about, this view of the world. And, I think it's the way of wrestling through that idea.
Uh-huh.
Of course, the desire for community is probably the number one kind of desire that human beings have. And what we would say is that, not only do we not believe that nothing ever existed, but we also believe that there was never a time when God was ever alone, really, because we believe God's a Trinity.
Right.
So, in the first song, he's talking about, the emptiness of existence in a godless universe. I'm assuming, and then on top of that is the emptiness of human beings not being able to stick together and be with each other. Mm-hmm. And of course, that's a major problem. So on the one hand, it's like, why do we as human beings have a desire for community while at the same time we always do things that destroy that community with each other?
Yeah.
And of course, well, we'd say, well, you have a desire for community because you're reflecting the image of God, who is a Trinity,
right?
Who always had community, but you can't keep it together because of your sinful nature,
right?
So, but again, these are all things that you can just easily say as a Christian, and I believe it with all my heart. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have that view of the world, then you have to do a lot more work about trying to figure out what the hell is going on with all of us.
Yeah.
I envy the maggots. Their stuff at least sticks together better than laudations of misinformed seers and those lengthy annals of shame that we work with. Wow.
What is
that's religion.
Oh.
A seer is another word for a prophet, and the lengthy annals of shame that we work with would be holy books, right?
Wow.
Bible, Quran, whatever.
Yep.
And so he's saying the maggots, they found a way to stick together without religion, basically.
Oh.
Right? Because religion is extremely divisive. What's interesting is that, Jesus came and said, yeah, I'm going to be divisive initially. Mm-hmm. Right? So he's like, your family's going to hate you, your countrymen are going to hate you, your mother-in-law is going to hate you because of me. Mm-hmm. So that's a start. But then at the end, he tells us that the great command is that we love each other. Mm-hmm. And then he tells us to disciple the entire world.
Right.
So he's saying you're going to lose members of your immediate family, but then you're going to disciple the world to love each other. And so this is a way of bringing everybody back together. Mm-hmm. And I think it's a crazy concept that God is pictured as a divider and a gatherer. Mm-hmm. So like in Genesis 11, he divides the world with the Tower of Babel. Mm-hmm. So the world is divided. And then in Genesis 12, you see him show up to Abraham and he says, through you all the nations of the world will be blessed.
Yeah.
And so God divides us if he's not at the center, but when he is at the center, then he becomes the center of gravity that draws us closer to each other as we get closer to him. Because from a biblical perspective, like true human fellowship can only function if God is the central, is at the center. You can't have true human gathering unless God's at the center. That's the biblical understanding of why it works and why it doesn't work.
Right.
And of course, the fact that a person is religious does not mean that they're centering God in their life. It means they're centering religion in their life. Right. And you can tell this because you strive. One of the things that strive to do is like, okay, Jesus had a divisive effect with certain types of people, and he had a unifying effect with other types of people.
Yep.
So like with self-righteous, religious people, they didn't like him. Hardcore secularists didn't like Jesus either.
Right.
All these people that are like, oh, I like Jesus, I just don't like Christianity. Jesus would have been cool with your abortion, believe me. He wouldn't have been.
Absolutely not.
So people who are not willing to say, yeah, I screwed up here, and here, they didn't like Jesus at all.
Right.
But then there are other people who will be like, you know what, I'm not a perfect person. And I know I'm not a perfect person. I know there's places I need to change. those people were like attracted, and Jesus became their center of gravity. And so it's a crazy idea that we can't get along with each other, and why, and you know, on both in the Old and New Testament, God shows up and purposely divides people so that he can unite them with the right, you know, the right center of gravity.
Right.
Because there's a lot of things, and people might not like that, but think about this. There's a lot of things that bring people together that we don't like. Like, for example, all the identity politics that's happening in our country. Like, you can bring people together if the center of gravity is ethnocentrism or racism or hate or whatever. You can easily bring people together. So the fact that and we would all agree probably that if a group of people are brought together because of ethnocentrism and racism, that group should be divided.
Yeah.
You know, or we'll say it this way, like, we wouldn't cry if that group became divided.
No.
So I think it's important to realize that, yeah, there are times when God purposely divides people, but it's because they're being gathered by the wrong center of gravity. And our assumption is that unless God's the center of gravity, then it's inevitably going to cannibalize itself.
I mean, even maggots, they have to have a goal, because I've seen maggots get out of, you know, empty your trash can and they all fall out the bottom. It's totally disgusting. But they'll scatter.
Right.
Like, but give them something to work on and they're all going to be there.
Yeah. It's like dumping dead meat at the brink of Styx. River Styx is it's that river in Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Where you cross over.
When you die?
Yeah. With a barge that we made of what was left of Yggdrasil. I think that's a Norse idea of the afterlife. So he's combining. I'm not sure. I need some help on that one. Yggdrasil. What is it? Why don't we just Google it?
Because you always say we don't research.
Well, I don't wanna like disrespect our Norse people.
Oh, this internet is so bad. Want to use my phone?
Blame the internet. Yggdrasil.
What else could it be? The internet's going slow.
Haha! Old Norse is an immense mythical tree that plays a central role in Norse cosmology. It connects the 9 worlds.
Huh. You always see that in necklaces and stuff.
Yeah. So
Girls are being so loud.
It's a great tree. Girls, be quiet!
And it connects the 9 worlds?
Yeah, that's crazy though. It's like dumping dead at the meat at the brink of Styx with a barge that we made of what was left. So like the Yggdrasil is this giant sacred tree, and you just made a barge out of it.
Ooh.
Yikes. After veterans of spiritual revolts were done with their armchairs, and I don't even remember which brink is which. Yikes. Think about that. Veterans of spiritual revolts were done with their armchairs. You know,
so
like,
did they first make armchairs out of the tree? Is that what's...
No, I think he's talking about the irony of, you know, a veteran of a revolt. That sounds like really glorious.
Yeah.
But the entire time you were just in a chair. You were just in an armchair. Like, you weren't doing anything significant with spirituality. You were just... They have this thing called armchair quarterbacking.
Yeah.
Which is basically, you know, like Tom Brady's actually on the field.
Yeah.
And then he makes a decision, and then somebody goes, "Oh my gosh, how could you do that?" It's like, you're in an armchair.
Right.
Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
You don't know anything. So it's like, here you are, this veteran of a spiritual revolt, and the entire time you were just in an armchair.
Oh, okay.
You were just opining, you were just saying your stupid idea, but you never really did anything in the real world.
I thought, because it says with a barge that we made of what was left of that tree. So I thought they made their armchair, their thrones, their whatever, these spiritual people, and they desecrated what was connecting the 9 worlds.
Well, they desecrated what was sacred. Well, the barge is made out of the sacred tree, and it's a desecration of what's sacred.
The sacred tree connects the 9 worlds, it said.
Yeah, but then it talks about these veterans of spiritual revolts, and they were just in our. It's basically everything is sacred. It's all bullshit. Like, oh, that's this amazing sacred tree that connects the 9 worlds. We can make a boat out of it. And then it's like, oh, here you are, a veteran of spiritual warfare, and you were in an armchair the entire time. You were just sitting there. It's completely meaningless.
Yeah.
But it's taking normal things like a tree or somebody sitting in a chair and trying to add significance to them when there was really no significance. There was no significance to this tree. It's just good for making boats, and there's no significance to you and your spiritual war. You were in an armchair the entire time. Yikes. The odor of sanctity is just refined stench of existence. Shining pearls of Augus's crown pales in comparison. The odor of sanctity is just refined stench of existence. That means, it's like, it's just normal stuff. It's just stuff that exists, but you created, you made it sanctimonious, you made it holy, because you wanted to have something that transcends your basic existence. But it's all, like, again, it's just BS, because, who decided that this tree was holy? Who decided that this particular spot, this arbitrary spot on the land has become holy? Like, like even in the Old Testament, the temple, like, it's a collection of stones and wood. But all of a sudden it becomes this great, thing, and then when the temple gets destroyed, it's this great cultural tragedy, and it's like, well, I mean, who made that anything significant?
God did. What do you mean?
Sure. I mean, but even God basically says, who cares about the temple? Because in the New Testament, the temple it's gotten rid of.
Yeah, it served its purpose.
And then basically Paul turns around and says,
want to keep holding on.
Yeah, Paul turns around and says, who cares? It wasn't significant in the first place, in and of itself.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
So it's this guy is going for it. The grotesque eagles of misfortune, well fed on Thanatos, sit still in the dignity of scavengers at the ever-growing garbage dump of life. Jesus is talking about the destruction of Jerusalem, and he said, and they said, "Where, Lord?" And then Jesus says, wherever the eagles are, there the dead body is. Or wherever the eagles gather, there are the dead bodies. What's interesting is that the term for eagle in Greek also functions as vultures.
Yeah.
But it also functions as eagle, which the Roman standards were eagles. So basically Jesus is saying, when you see these Roman soldiers creep up, that's when you're going to see, that's when the vultures are going to be overhead. This has nothing to do with that, other than just, I'm always amazed at how Jesus used irony and how intelligent he was.
Right.
Because Jesus is like, Jay-Z is a little bit like Jesus. Like, you listen to Jay-Z, you're like, oh, that's cool. But then you listen to it years later, you're like, yo, he was saying like 9 things at the same time. That's how Jesus is. He says stuff and people are like, eh. But like, when you really sit and listen to what Jesus said, he was a really smart dude. Okay. But anyway, I love this song. It's a 10 for me. What do you give it? You're going to give it some blasphemous number.
Yeah, an 8.
Abomination. It's a 10. McGuire, don't listen to her. It's a 10. Vin out.
Sori out.
Gone.